Okay, hi guys, my name is Marie McGregor. I'm a registered dietitian working at the Sports Science Institute in Newlands. I just wanted to chat today a little bit about the new 2025 to 2030 American dietary guidelines that have got the world talking. So everyone is talking about the new infographic, which is an upside down triangle, and it depicts a lot of minimally processed foods. It has got protein, dairy, fat, fruit, and vegetables. And then all the way at the bottom, it's got whole grains at the bottom of the triangle, which is different to what we've seen previously. But what do the guidelines themselves actually say? So for the first time ever, the American guidelines are saying exclude all processed foods. So we want to choose minimally processed food, get rid of packaged, processed, ready-made foods. And this is a real first, and it's something we all know. We've been saying it for a long time, and there's clear evidence that processed food is damaging to health. So this definitely is a good step forward. What's interesting is the protein guidelines have changed quite dramatically. So initially, for years, the protein guidelines have always been to have 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight, whereas now they've increased those guidelines to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram body weight. Now, where we're working at Sports Science Institute, we work with a lot of athletes, so we often work with these type of recommendations, which work for athletes because they are training regularly, they are needing protein for recovery, for muscle strength. So in general, we use this quite a lot. However, in a sedentary population, we are not sure whether this would be suitable. So, if you are sedentary, you're not doing much exercise at all, and you're suddenly increasing your protein intake, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to build more muscle. Potentially, there is evidence that shows you could increase liver fat, which could lead to diabetes, other problems. So, whether this is suitable for a general sedentary population, we are unsure. Okay. We also know that there is good evidence that including healthier proteins such as your fish, such as plant-based proteins, is really important in the diet. And in these new American guidelines, they do mention that. So if people can interpret it correctly and increase their protein, but actually increase it with a good protein, this would be a good way to go about it. One thing that is a problem is they don't mention anything about processed foods. Processed meats, processed meats, because these highly processed meats, which are preserved, have got lots of nitrates in it, there is evidence that they have negative effects on cancer risk. And what we see typically when someone says, I can eat lots of meat, is they go for your red meats and they go for your bacon, your salamis, processed meats, and these are not necessarily the proteins which are going to bring about the suitable changes. So you actually want to be focusing on including more plant-based protein, fish protein, lean proteins than all the unhealthy proteins. So that is not quite clear in the guidelines. Another great point is the recommendation to avoid sugar-sweetened beverages completely. They recommend you limit refined carbohydrates, and they recommend that you limit drinks and foods with artificial sweeteners in it. So it's not only sugar, it's also artificial sweeteners, which is quite interesting. There is emerging evidence at the moment that artificial sweeteners can have a negative effect on your gut microbiome and also on glucose control. So for people who are including huge amounts of artificially sweetened cool drinks, this is definitely something to consider, and that is something I've been saying in practice for a long time. So we really want to get people away from needing these high sugar diets or a diet that tastes high sugar, even if it's a non-nutritive sweetener. Then the emphasis on whole grain, high fiber food. So they do specifically mention that when you're having grains, you want them to be whole grain, high fiber, which is great. We all know the benefits of fiber from a weight loss point of view, from a diabetes control point of view, from a gut microbiome point of view, just overall health. It's very much included in an anti-inflammatory dietary plan. They do recommend small servings though, so 2 to 4 servings per day, which particularly in an athlete population would be far too little. A sedentary person not doing much might get away with 4 servings per day quite happily, but we'd really want to be, again, you've got to look at the individual and whether this will actually work and benefit them. The other thing that we need to talk about is the fats. Okay, so what's really interesting is as they have increased the emphasis on fats, and within the guidelines themselves, they mention choose healthy fats, and they actually mention to keep your saturated fat intake to less than 10%. The fruit and vegetable recommendations haven't changed. It's still 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day. They specifically mention 3 veg and 2 fruit to put more emphasis on your vegetables. So that we know, there's no question about that. And then what's really interesting is at the end, the alcohol guidelines used to be that you limit for men less than 2 drinks per day, for women less than 1 drink per day. And now they have just changed the guideline to limit how much alcohol you are taking in, which is really opening the floor to any amount of alcohol. So at the end of the day, there is some good coming out of the American guidelines. I think we just need to be careful about how we interpret it and apply it. And hopefully we can see some changes in the food industry.